Good afternoon from my side as well. Very glad to be here in this great summit, and I think it's for all of us a wonderful opportunity, at least once per year. All right. Hopefully the audio is a bit better now. So I was saying that it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us, maybe once per year, to take a step back from our everyday work, trying to figure out what the AI really means for our organizations, and get a bit of a glimpse to the future, hear what our other colleagues and peers are saying, and of course try to readjust and course correct on what we're going to do until next year summit on AI. Now, for today, I'm going to talk about sovereign AI. So just to start with the definition, sovereign AI is about leveraging AI capabilities within the limits of either national sovereignty or, in some case, maybe also at the European level. But sovereign AI is not about limits. I will discuss today about two important words. One is control, the other is trust. And of course, I will explain that in a second. Now, hopefully my clicker works. Let's see. Perfect. First of all, why to discuss about sovereign AI in the first place? I think the rationale is quite simple. AI is just too important for businesses. After the initial 1 or 2 first years of experimenting on what AI really means, now more and more businesses make AI, or at least aspire to make AI a critical part of their business operations, of their business strategy. Therefore, it becomes too important to fail. And what we see is what we call a concentration risk. I'm giving the example here of LLMs. LLM is not, it's just one dimension. I will explain in a second, but 70% of them, more or less, came from US, another 25% came from China, that's 95%. So that automatically creates a dependency, external dependency, and a concentration risk. And what we have seen in our research, and I will explain more on this research in a second, is that based on our findings, around 1/3, on average, of course, of the workloads of pretty much any organization may require a higher level of trust, so cannot be treated with a one-size-fits-all approach. And when you require a bit more trust, what it typically means is you need to retain a bit more control. But we'll explain that in a second. First of all, I will start with some numbers. This is just to understand the scale. So AI, as you very well know, runs on top of data centers, and data centers, the best way to benchmark their capacity or their throughput is mainly looking at the power consumption. This is not a perfect KPI, but an established one. So currently, we are at 55 gigawatts overall of data centers globally, and roughly 1/5, 10 gigawatts, are currently installed in the European Union. Now, the consensus of growth forecast for 2030 is 2.6, in some research up to three times increase. So if it is 55 gigawatts now, it's going to be 140 gigawatts by the end of the decade. And of course, European Union is realizing that they have a small share of that. They're trying to play catch up with some of the initiatives like the gigafactories that are being set up. But the question here is, why we in Greece should we care about that, right? Isn't that something somebody else is going to do, right? Can we just use what the hyperscaler offer us? Do we really have to do anything about that, or we just use whatever is available? Now, all the research, again, indicates that around 1/3, in this particular reference I have is 6%, of the consumption is coming from the global players, hyperscalers. So this is important. This is the dominant one, true, but that's not 100%. It's not anywhere close. So there is around 40% that has to be covered either with private data centers, private clouds, on-prem, all these different combinations. And imagine that's something that will have more or less to triple in the next couple of years, since we are following the curve of the overall growth. And out of this, around 1/3, a bit less 1/3, up to 30% or 27%, is pure AI consumption. So what is the case here is that we see the demand growing as said, it's going to almost triple. A big chunk of that, around 40%, will not be covered by global cloud providers, and a third of that is AI. So this is still important. It is big enough to impact what organizations need to do, what kind of choice they have to make, and of course will impact also the local economy. Now, I did mention about explaining a bit more on what sovereign AI means. I will start by saying that it's not just about where we place our data. Most of us are very familiar with data sovereignty. As part of being an EU member state, there are already regulations that in certain industries, they, I would say, not necessarily 100% immediately prohibit, but they strongly discourage the movement of data outside the EU border. But up to now, pretty much that was the only thing we have to care about from a sovereignty level. So as long as we chose like a European data center in any of the hyperscalers, that was good enough. It ticked the boxes of the compliance. But sovereignty is not just about that. Data is one element. The kind of software and technology, the technology stack we use is another, a second element. So do we have any control of the software we have? Can we make choices? Can we influence? Or is it something that in the next tariff war, it could just disappear or become too expensive? Operations of our cloud system is another element. Is it run by people that are physically located in the country or inside the European Union, or is it outsourced outside? And last one, of course, probably the hardest one to crack is the foundation model. So, of course, all of us would love to use the latest frontier LLMs, but how can you do that in a resilient way? How can you do that without placing a very strong dependency that, again, is at risk to be disrupted at any point soon? So, to make the case about sovereign AI, this is not about, I would say, isolation. It still has interoperability in its heart. As we'll explain in a second, it boils down not on a black or white answer, but blending global and local components, of course, maintaining some level of control, which usually translates to flexibility and resilience. But why now? From a market perspective, all the research shows that this market is getting bigger. But what I would call out here is two main elements. One is that due to geopolitics, a lot of our organization, our clients that we have interviewed, and this is an Accenture research, claiming that it is more likely to change their decision and make decisions based on sovereign AI. In fact, 61%. So it's becoming a more important, becoming a mainstream topic. But also looking on the last one, point number 4, is that we expect that in the next 2 to 3 years, roughly 2/3 of countries worldwide will have some sort of additional sovereignty compliance rules that will affect the business. So in the past, as I said, it was as simple as ensuring that your global cloud provider was using a European data center, and that's it, you tick all the boxes. But gradually, we will see more and more requirements from a compliance perspective to think about sovereignty, in areas where it really matters, in areas where the level of trust for the data, for the processes, for the way we handle the models needs to be higher or above normal. Now, what to do about that, or how can we start thinking about this, which is, I understand, a new concept for many of us. From our side, as Accenture, we have run a recent survey that tried to shape a bit the understanding of the market and also where we should be heading. And we recognize, I will call, 4 imperatives. Number 1 is who should care about sovereign AI, and our answer is it should be more on the board level and less on of the chief AI guy. Number 2 is why to care about sovereignty. It's not just about compliance, but we will make the argument that it's also about value creation. Number 3 is that about expanding your ecosystem and going for a more hybrid approach, which in effect hedges the risk. And last one, of course, expanding beyond data and thinking about the other layers of the architecture. And I will explain one by one these 4 points in the remaining time. Now, when we interviewed more than 2,000 executives from our client list, we asked the question: okay, who in your organization has sovereign AI in his or her plate? And the answer, as I will show in the next slide, was not the C-level. It was seen more as a compliance or a technical issue. But we are making the argument for the opposite, that due to the nature, and also I would say the ambiguity from a compliance standpoint of sovereignty in AI, this has to be elevated at the suite. So it's not only about making the right strategic decisions on where you place your dependencies. It's about also orchestrating across the business function the different departments that need to contribute in this discussion: legal, data department, of course, also the business function, but also to be present in the discussion at the national level to co-shape, to co-define what this really means in every single country. And in Greece, right now, there is no, I would say, clear regulatory framework for AI sovereignty, but this is something in the broader context of European Union that will happen, and we need to be in the forefront of this discussion and not just lay back and wait to see what happens. So, as I said, only 15% actually make AI sovereignty board priority, and as you can see in most of the cases, it's a job to be done for the data officer or the AI officer, and in some cases of the compliance officer. But this graph needs to be reversed. It's too important to delegate this kind of decision making to the technical guys. They are stakeholders. They have obviously a strong point of view here, but this is a strategic topic. So elevating it to the C-level is probably one of the things I would like you to remember from today's presentation. Second one is, is this about risk management or is it also about value creation? Not surprisingly, for those companies that had, their focus on sovereign AI, number one reason was compliance. Even though, as I said right now, the regulatory framework doesn't force AI sovereignty apart from European data sovereignty in any other way. But compliance was the main lens people were looking about that. But there are also many other reasons. And if you add the reasons we have here in this space, like gaining control of your critical data in AI or the workloads that require higher level of trust, considering national security in the context of geopolitical competition, and also implying some country-level requirements, or ensuring operational continuity, and this is a hot topic nowadays. You saw what happened last week with a simple disruption of one well-known web service, but ensuring continuity on operations, that's also a big element. So these kind of considerations, once you add them together, they can become a differentiator, something that could create value, could drive and foster innovation also for your organization, and not just thinking sovereignty or any restriction that it imposes as something that limits the possibilities. Third point is about thinking about how to expand the ecosystem. That's an important one. When we think currently on AI ecosystem, usually it boils down to very few, numbered in the fingers of one hand, of global players. But this is just the global cloud providers and the AI partners that they have. In many markets, we have what we call sovereign frontliners. So there are, I will give the example in Nordics and also Southeast Asia. We saw, for example, the telcos playing the role of being the first to make this kind of offerings to the market. But it's not just the telcos. We see also high-tech players in this, and recently also organizations that have an inherent advantage on energy generation and energy consumption. So this will be a very, I would say, competing space, but we expect also in Greece to have very soon similar initiative hitting the market. So we have the global cloud providers, we have the sovereign players in the market, we have what we call the neo-clouds. These are AI native cloud providers that obviously cannot and do not aspire to provide the breadth of cloud capabilities, nor the maturity of these services that the hyperscaler offer, but they do offer the very best of the AI hardware readily available with even more competitive price point, and also in some cases even more flexibility on the setting and the how you consume this kind of resources. And the last one of this of ecosystem is in some cases a consortium that includes some government entities or partial private and public team of organizations. And what we have seen, and this is a comparison on our studies, again, imagine this is a questionnaire of our C-levels. The one is 2002, the other one is the recent that was published this month. We see simply a very obvious shift. Now, there is still a portion of the organization, this is not Greece or Europe, this is worldwide, that still only rely on local providers. This is mainly true in captive markets or markets that have special constraints. But then the majority flipped from being predominantly only on a global provider, flipped on using both a cloud and a local ecosystem player. Why? Because they see that this kind of trend is coming, and they need to have the ability to explore options outside the pure global ones that are, of course, are mainly US based. So a bit more flexibility and allow us to retain control. And last but not least is the architecture of sovereignty on AI. It's not just about data, as I mentioned, but also it includes elements on the AI models, applications, security, and of course, the infrastructure itself. And again, this is a part of our surveys, and even though a lot of our clients have already thought about sovereignty in the domain of data, more than 6%, when it goes to AI models, it's just only 22%, and on the application side, it's equally small. And again, we expect to see this graph reversed in the next couple of years. Why? Because there is a good reason from a business standpoint, business continuity, but also, I think to some extent, the geopolitical wave will also force us towards this direction. Of course, the initiative from the EU on the gigafactories is exactly aligned with this direction. Lastly, I see I have three seconds left. What I would like you to keep from this discussion is about how you navigate this continuum. It's not black or white, it has full shades of gray. How to think about a mix of global and local solution, and of course, getting your AI more trustworthy, more resilient, and then converting that to a real advantage and not just a compliance point. With this, I would like to thank you so much for your attention.